I'm glad that we have Snacky on for the sex trio.
I know. Your mother's gonna. I was gonna say I feel so bad. Both of our mothers are gonna be so proud of us.
Hi everyone, welcome to the 3-episode podcast. It is the long-awaited sex trio that we've been talking about for like 2 fucking years.
The only thing I'm worried about is, are we jumping the shark? Are we jumping the shark by having the sex trio?
Nah.
I don't think so because I think Val has a nice little plan for it, and I think it'll be okay. I'm
classing up the place at least for the first part.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least this first one's going to be interesting. It'll be okay.
We're going to take it seriously till everything turns into butt jokes and shit.
Which is
So I'm going to make the introductions and then Val's going to take over because this is Val's trio to do with what she wants. Because we thought she would be the perfect one to lead this. So she's going to lead us through the sex. That sounded bad. As usual, I am your host, Justin.
Babe, is it okay? Val's gonna lead me through sex.
You tell her she can come too.
As usual, I am your host, Justin. Joining us
is Val's gonna lead me through sex. Okay, she's
all right. Blessings.
Joining us as usual is Ryan.
Say that.
I said that maybe you could teach him a few things.
Listen, he's the one with Richard, so I don't know what's going on.
This is very true. Okay, as usual, I am your host, Justin. My brother Ryan is joining us, as well as Snacky, our brother Travis.
Yay.
We have Steve, who likes the finer things in sex. We all know over our conversations. Yeah. And then we have our host for this trio, Val, who's going to teach us things. What are you going to teach us, Val?
What's up?
Wait. Before we start, this episode is brought to you by BJ's brand condoms.
Yes.
Oh, yay.
The trio is brought to you by BJ's brand.
Yeah, this trio is brought to you by BJ's brand condom and new just released BJ's brand lube. It comes in a 5-gallon bucket.
It's a sticky bucket. It's a non-sticky bucket.
Yeah, it's a non-stick bucket. It's got one of those the handles with the grip.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so now
before we start, do we need to establish safe words for this trio?
Yeah, okay, so my safe word is gorgonzola.
Okay.
So
I'll take pineapple.
All right, very good.
Justin, what's yours?
Yeah, can we go around and say our safe words? Justin, what's your safe word?
I don't fucking my safe word is no. No,
right,
my safe
good.
word is Albuquerque.
All right, very good. Yeah, that's good. It's supposed to be a word that doesn't usually come up in sex. So that's good.
I don't usually say no during sex.
Well, I'm glad you changed it then.
I do say Albuquerque though, sometimes.
Well, just like you have a geography fetish.
He just draws maps on her back.
Yeah. I hate it.
Stay still. I haven't gotten the capital right. God damn it.
Where's the goddamn eraser? All right. Okay. So this episode is about, we're going to talk about the history of sex, sex and sexual habits and weird shit involving sex throughout history.
Sea porcupine.
Is yours what'd you say? Yours is porcupine?
Sea porcupine.
Sea porcupine? What?
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
You mean?
Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right. Well, when we get to that point in history, please bring it up again, I guess. Okay. So we're going to start with prehistoric times and then move our way up to now and beyond. So what we're going to do first is I'm just going to this is going to kind of be like a stream of consciousness of fun related things and photos that I found in my research.
Are you going to take us through the future of sex?
I'm gonna listen. I don't want to jump the shark, but I feel like we're gonna get to where we are today, and then we're gonna take a peek into infinity and beyond. So
I think the future, does the future involve like 3 seashells? And then you just both put on helmets?
Oh my god.
yeah, it's
Good
gonna,
reference.
yeah. So starting with I'm gonna throw it out there that if you are a listener on Spotify or any other audio platform, this is the trio that it would be best for you to watch on YouTube, because there's a ton of visual aids.
yeah.
And there's a ton of photos
Like
that
my sex life. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So there's going to be a ton of things for you to look at, ton of eye candy, and maybe some things that you didn't know that you wanted to look at, and maybe some things that you wish you hadn't looked at. So yeah, so just, if you're listening, this might be the trio to watch as well. Okay, so we're going to start with the oldest known so since the beginning of time, humans have been obsessed with sex. Nothing has changed. It's pretty much the only constant between birth and death is that you're going to try to fuck something. So
Or something's gonna try to fuck you.
or something's going to try to fuck you. Yeah. So the first, the oldest known type of art in human history, or like prehistoric history, was cave art. That's where people did all of their like creative, their record keeping, and their oral history went to written history through cave paintings and cave carvings. And so that first photo, Justin, that I sent you,
The very first one in order? Is that what
they're in
doing?
order. So I've kind of put them in order of how I'm going to talk about them. So
Okay.
the very first one is a carving in stone. And it's very clearly a dick, and it's very clearly, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. So this photo of a cave carving of a dick was created 37,000 years ago. So that'll give you a little bit of a hint into how long humans have been doing dumb shit like this. And so it was found in southern France. And so this is like
Of course.
the very oldest one. So yeah. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some other ancient sex-related stonework from back then. So after cave paintings, there were those like rudimentary fertility totems that people would do. So there was a stone, there's actually a stone statue of, it was supposed to be lovers having sex, and they discovered it's just like a man's pelvis and what looked like a woman's behind bent over. And that was from about 4,000 years ago. And then you have some fertility, you have some other like, fertility goddesses and fertility, they would pray for fertility. So they would draw these like large, supple female objects like the Venus of
Can we just pause and talk about the lovers in clay though? Can we talk about the fact that
you can stop me at any time. I'm gonna stream of consciousness until you have something to say.
I want to talk about the first one though, really quick.
Yeah.
The first one is just like you could tell that if that was in a cave, that all the other cavemen were like going like, this is the buffalo we killed today. This is the village. This is the tribe we killed. And then Larry's just sitting over here going like, guys, don't look. Wait. Almost there.
So that's actually,
look, guess what I'm making. It's fine.
So that's
look, I made a dick.
So that actually brings up a good point. There's a point of contention in historians about whether prehistoric humans were super promiscuous or like kind of prudish, and there's evidence to support both theories.
So just like now.
Yeah. So nothing's changed. So there are there's evidence to support through like cave paintings and different pieces of history that they found from that time period that show that like men would have sex with multiple women, or women would have sex with multiple men, or there would be these like fertility, there was like evidence of fertility cults where people would have sex with each other in homage to the fertility god or goddess that they were praying to in order to, like, you know,
Get Virgo.
for whatever reason. But there's also evidence that they were monogamous, and I think it comes from, like, it's like a location. It varies by location, and it varies by, like, specific groups. So, like, there was tons of little tribes of people and groups of people, and they were all nomadic, and so, you know, it differed from place to place. But there's evidence to both of those, which is funny. And then, so I'm going to send you something. This was found in a cave as well. This, it's a phallic tool, and they think it might have been used as two different, it could have been like a sex toy. But it also could have been used as like a bludgeoning tool or whatever. But it's 29,000 years old. So people have been making dildos possibly for, you know, since the beginning of time, since the beginning of humans, there have been dildos.
I just like the way you put that. It could be a sex thing, but it could also bludgeon people.
Well, look at it. It literally looks like looks like a fucking dildo, or like you know. Or it could be something that you use to, like, muddle up herbs to make a poultice or something like that.
Yeah,
you know
but why would you cut the head of the penis into it? See, that's the only thing. Like, I want to see someone try to convince me that, oh, this is a muddler. It's like, then why did they put the thing? Why did they obviously go, this is the head of the penis?
So because of the ridges, it's able to cut through some of the more tough things.
Yeah.
So that's why there's some ridges in it.
Okay.
I mean, it's also ribbed for her pleasure.
Yeah. So, you know, they're basically saying they're like 90% sure that it's a dildo, but there's no proof. So I'm just gonna rapid fire some things about prehistoric sex. So there was a significant amount of inbreeding because people traveled in small groups, and, you know, they didn't always interact with one another. And obviously they had this is prehistoric. So the moral development and the social moral code wasn't developed yet. And they didn't have any idea that was a danger to, you know,
Their society.
Danger to society through, like, birth defects and stuff like that. So they didn't know anything about that. You know, this is like, you know, it's kind of like animals. So there's a significant amount of inbreeding. There's evidence that Homo sapiens had sex with Neanderthals. There's a study suggesting that Homo sapiens were capable of producing fertile offspring after mating with Neanderthals, but not female Neanderthals. So if the male was Neanderthal, they could produce an offspring. But if the female was a Neanderthal, then the Homo sapien Neanderthal offspring would not be fertile. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of like the liger. This is like the liger of the human world.
Yeah, or the donkey.
Yeah. Okay, so is there anything else I want to say about that? Okay, so there was primitive birth control. And it was basically like hit or miss. There was, like, you know, you eat plants, or you know, it wasn't really based on any science or anything. So that was pretty much, that's a very basic understanding of sex before prehistoric times. So now next I'm going to move to, we're going to do a big jump in history to the Egyptian times, because this is the Egyptian empire is like such a large group of, like, large chunk of time. It's like at least 6,000 years. So we're
it depends on which kingdoms you're talking about.
Yeah, so when we're speaking in broad strokes about this, you know, I know. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
I love you. So here's some cool stuff about Egyptian sex. And what sex is like in ancient Egypt. So they had really weird forms of birth control, and they were a little bit more advanced. They didn't have, like, pills or, you know, any type of, like, sheath like a condom, but they did use certain things to they understood how sex worked enough to understand how to like try to stop it from working. And so they would do things like take gum from acacia trees and like moss and like make like this like paste cap, and they would cover this, they would like shove it in the vagina to cover the cervix during sex to like stop, you know, fertilization from happening. And then another method of doing that I thought was funny was honey and sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda. So like honey and baking soda to make a paste and put that inside the vagina, which like
are you sure they weren't just trying to cook?
So this in my head, like as a vagina having person, the idea of putting something like baking soda that would fuck up the pH of the vagina so badly, that makes me like cringe so hard. I just feel like so many Egyptian people were walking around with like fucking yeast infection.
A fizzy vagina?
Yeah, like a fucking like those you know those volcano projects that you did?
The trio.
John's face as he joined in. This is great.
Oh Jesus!
We're talking about
Morning, John.
Without me being here, did you unilaterally decide to do the sex trio?
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah.
Okay. There he was, and there he went.
Val, so take what you were just saying, and then think about how much you enjoy sex, and then think about not having any kind of birth control or condoms or anything.
Right.
Could you go long enough without sex to the point where you're just like, okay, just fucking put that poultice in me?
I can't imagine at any point turning my vagooter into a 6th grade science project. You know those volcano science projects? That's what that would feel like to me. No, but this isn't even the worst thing. No, let me continue.
I mean, if you think about it, you would have known the repercussions, so you would have done it anyway.
Yeah, correct.
Like, I like the way your fizz is. Don't blame me.
That's what well, maybe that's like
on the inside.
It's kind of like when you put Pop Rocks in your mouth. Is that what that's kind of like? Maybe.
Probably.
There's other places you could put Pop Rocks.
Yeah, I don't. Okay. So other things that they used were for primitive birth control was crocodile dung and dates. So they would like mush up those things and.
Val, which one are you picking?
Out of everything?
Yeah.
Out of everything, I think I would probably do honey.
The fizzy vagina.
Honey, no, not honey and the baking soda. I would probably just do honey and dates. That seems like a nice.
I know how hard it is to put honey in my tea. How do you put honey up there?
Listen, the Egyptians built the pyramids. I'm going to assume they've built an apparatus for that.
The Egyptian understood how to mummify someone.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get to that. Okay, so in terms of sex toys, the Egyptians
I love it. They knew how to mummify someone. Well, let's talk about the sex toy.
Yeah. So no, it just kind of shows that like they were kind of on the forefront of invention in every aspect. So let's talk about Cleopatra. She was one of the rulers in ancient Egypt. She was like, it's in history that she loved sex. She had lots of lovers, whatever. But it was said that
Mark Antony.
Yep, and she had an illegitimate child with Julius Caesar as well.
Yeah.
However, it was said that she filled she took a hollowed out gourd, like a gourd that you would grow, like a squash, and she filled it with bees and used it as a vibrator. And so there's that.
Interesting.
Brave.
That is, that's one of the ancient sex toys that was used in ancient culture. Everybody knows that the Egyptians did a lot of incest to keep like royal bloodlines, which is how we ended up with what's his name?
What is it? It's the they took the mummy of Tutankhamun and they used like the CSI like rebuild face stuff. And
like a club foot.
They looked at us like, he's so fucked up. Like, oh my God. If you saw this guy walking around right now, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, he had like hip dysplasia and a club foot and his head was a weird shape and he was like hobbling. This is
Yeah.
it's
Not a
ridiculous.
healthy
Sounds like
guy.
It definitely sounds like a Friday night.
Okay, so other things in Egyptian culture, prostitution was considered sacred. It was considered to be a divine and respectable act, and that it was done in pleasure to the gods. Prostitutes had a high status in Egyptian society. They were allowed to work freely and openly, and they would signify themselves by wearing red lipstick and getting tattooed, the tattoo of a prostitute. And it was super common in Egypt, and they were like super sexually open. Virginity didn't matter in, it wasn't like something that emphasis was put on. If you married a virgin, cool. If you didn't, cool. Nobody really cared. They were okay with premarital sex. But once you were married, you had to respect that union. So they were monogamous, and getting divorced was allowed under two conditions, being childlessness and infidelity. And so they think that the practice of oral sex comes from ancient Egypt. Because there is the popularity of oral sex came from ancient Egypt because of a mythological tale about Seth murdering his brother Osiris, chopping him into small pieces, and then their sister gathers the parts of the brother and then puts the penis in her mouth, and then it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's a whole thing. There were also, it was a common practice in Egypt to wear amulets around their necks in the shapes of the male and female genitalia. They were found in their tombs, buried with them on in tombs dating back to 2500 BC. And there was proof of or evidence of circumcision in ancient Egypt as well. They also had a weird understanding of of how the sex organs worked, and they believed that semen came from the back, from like the spine. So they believed in a holy sacred vertebrae in the spine, like in the spine, and that was where they believed that the sperm came from. So that's just one of the weird.
Not the dangly bits.
Not the dangly bits. I don't
that's
know
where
what
the
they
pee
thought
comes
that
from.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, your pee is stored in the balls, and everyone knows that.
That's why they inflate when I really need to pee, right? I don't need to go see a doctor. It's fine.
So yeah, I mean, it covers such a large swath of history, the Egyptian Empire, that like I'm sure that they had prostitution. I'm sure that they had some form of slavery. So I'm sure that there were sex slaves. I'm sure that there were orgies. I'm sure that there were, everything that we have in modern. I'm sure that there was fetishes. Everything that they had in modern culture. I'm sure they had to some degree, because it was like 6,000 years of history. So, next I'm going to move on to the Kama Sutra, because that seems to be the next, when we're talking. I'm trying to do this as chronologically as possible, but also like jump around to as many parts of the world as I can get to.
Pirates.
We'll get to pirates, don't worry. So
I promised our viewers, our listeners, pirates. So we'll get to
the pirates, because the further we get in history, the weirder it gets, which is funny to me. So the Kama Sutra is an ancient Sanskrit text on sexuality, eroticism, and emotional fulfillment in life. It's the one book in the sacred Indian text, the Kama Shastra. It's been translated into a ton of languages, but it's like from hold on, let me look at my notes. They're saying it was written between 400 BCE and 300 CE. And if you've ever like, everybody knows what the Kama Sutra is. It's like this super well-known, super bastardized like guide to sex positions. The composition of the Kama Sutra is unknown. Justin, if you want to like there's like a million, if you just Google the Kama Sutra, there's a million different, actually the post that you put on Instagram was very similar to like Kama related arts.
I mean, also his background.
Yeah. Yep. Your background as well. So I'll just put a couple of photos in the chat so that's actually a good one. If you want to throw that up on the thing. So there were these things called Kama statues. And so what they would do is they would have this big wall, or like the wall of a building, or, something like that. and they would hold on. My cat is going to break my computer. What they would do is they would carve acts from the Kama Sutra into these pieces of stone, and they depicted very graphically sex between 2 or more people. So the Kama Sutra comes from the Hindu tradition of Purusharthas, which outlines the 4 main goals of life. And the 4 main goals of life are Dharma, which is, the order that makes life in the universe possible. Artha, which is the means of life, your resources that enable you to be in the state you want to be in. Kama, which is desire, wish, passion, emotions, pleasure of the senses, which is where the Kama Sutra comes from. And moksha, which signifies liberation, freedom, or release. And so it's also like the cycle of death and rebirth. So that is where the Kama Sutra is from and where it lives in Indian history. I think it's important to, like, people see the Kama Sutra and think it was just this one-off book that was just basically only written for people to know how to fuck, but it's very much one part of a large body of work. And this is essentially just the part of the body of work that talks about earthly pleasures like sex and, things like that. So the Kama Sutra has been translated into hundreds of languages. It's been, it's coffee table books, it's calendars. It's basically, if you are aware of what sex is, you're aware of what the Kama Sutra is.
Mission Impossible.
And and they've been, there's tons of parodies about it. So on the for those of you listening only, watch the YouTube, you're missing out. But on the screen right now is kind of bastardizations of the names of these musicians, things like Mission Impossible,
Top Gun,
Studio 54 or 69,
Deep
Shot.
Impact,
The Constant Gardener.
Dude, look at Unbreakable. It literally looks like someone's breaking a bone. The thing is, I don't even know how some of these work. There's no, tell me how Stargate works. Tell me how Stargate works.
Okay,
which one's that?
Okay,
You
that's
open
the
a
problem.
Stargate.
That's the problem with Kama Sutra and a lot of these position things is some of these positions you have to either be very athletic,
you got to
or
be
very
fucking hung like a
skinny,
horse,
or very skinny to be able to do.
Yeah, you got to be in shape, and you got to be hung like a fucking horse.
This is the kind of sex that they're trying to prevent at the Olympics right now.
Well, no,
That's very true.
Yeah.
This is very much the kind of sex that is currently happening.
Not to take us off on a side road, but did you see over time, like over the history of the Olympics, different things that they've done in different countries to try and prevent them from having sex with each other? There was like beds made out of cardboard.
That's what they did this
like
year.
some of their beds out of cardboard boxes. I think in like Russia, they made the beds out of like stone. Like shit like that. Like they fucking made it. They wanted to make it as uncomfortable as possible to do it.
But they still do.
It is a very well-known thing, that urban legend that has been proven to be true, that the Olympians fuck like rabbits. And good for them, dude. If they train fucking 15 hours a day, 7 days a week for like their whole entire lives, I hope everybody's fucking everybody. They deserve that.
No. I was telling Devin the other day, I'm like, I want to, it makes me happy to imagine some like huge like power lifter fucking a like Olympic gymnast. That just makes me happy for them.
Yes.
It just makes me happy for them, because it's like, this is the peak. No one's ever going to experience sex like you're going to experience.
Yeah.
Like, this is better sex than anyone will ever have in their lives, because you are at the peak condition.
I think that they should open up a sex part of the Olympics and just have like them do like the different parts of the Kama Sutra, and like at home you judge like American Idol on who wins.
They should come up with a common version. They should come up with the Olympian version of the Kama Sutra.
Yeah,
where they take pictures of the Olympians doing the Kama Sutra.
Yeah, that could be a coffee table book.
Yeah,
I would buy that book. Okay, so I'm going to read a quote from the Kama Sutra before we move on, because it's silly. Okay. And this was written, it's part of the Kama Sutra, and it's said to have come from around 700 BC. A fire, that is what a woman is. Her firewood is the vulva. Her smoke is the pubic hair. Her flame is the vagina. When one penetrates her, that is her embers. And her sparks are the climax. Oh, her sparks are the climax. In that very fire, the gods offer semen. And from that offering springs a man. It's just they were so poetic about it. Like, I really love the way that they worship the sex organ, especially like worship females. Anything that's like non-patriarchal about sex, I dig.
For anybody just
so now we've got the fluffy Kama Sutra.
What is the third row, second one to the bottom?
So those of you listening, we now have the rotund Kama Sutra. So this is just like very
what I thought of when I saw this was, if the other one is what the Olympians do, this is what the
Americans.
No. In Japan. Crap. I don't know
sumo
why.
wrestlers.
Sumo wrestlers.
Oh, it does look like sumo wrestlers. Oh, I dropped my.
This is the sumo wrestler Kama Sutra.
Okay. I like, these are realistic. Because like I can look at those and be like, there's nothing in anything. You're like fucking a crease.
Yeah.
Your dick is totally in a crease.
No, okay.
Which is fine.
Can I just say that my favorite is all the way the bottom right corner.
Pile driver, man.
The woman is doing a push-up and the guy is just riding her back.
I have a question. If you go 4 rows down and 3 over, they're not even facing one another. He's lying on his back and she's got her ass up in the air. There's nothing that can, like, where is his dick would be going into the air like a fucking unicorn horn. There's no way that would work unless they're like farting into each other's buttholes, and that's the thing that's bringing them joy.
Oh God.
Yes, well.
Like
farting into each other's buttholes.
It's a fetish. I guarantee you it's a fetish. Next week when we talk about kinks and fetishes, I'm going to find it.
Okay.
Farting, yes, farting is a fetish.
Yes, it is.
I mean, farting into each other's buttholes. Okay, so since the Greco-Roman influence kind of bled into the end of the Egyptian Empire, we're going to talk about ancient Greece and sex in ancient Greece, because everybody knows the Greeks were fucking weird about sex.
No, they weren't.
So sex in ancient Greece was not rigid at all. There weren't stigmas surrounding sexuality and sexual identity, especially for men. Relations between men was not only acceptable, it was encouraged. There was no word for homosexuality. The practice of homosexual sex between men was part of the broader concept of love, or called aphrodisia, which was uninfluenced by gender or sex. Athenian men regarded penetration and dominance as a status symbol. So if a man acted as the passive partner, which is called paphikos, he often endured ridicule, but not because of it being between two men. It was because he was the one receiving rather than giving. So it was like a dominance thing. It was like, oh, if you're a bottom, we don't care that you're gay, but we care that you're a bottom. You know what I mean? Like, so like tops were regarded as like, you know, virile and powerful and would win in battle and things like that. So you didn't want to be a bottom. Even though, here's the thing, the G-spot's been in your asshole since the beginning of human history. So I'm not saying that they knew what they were doing. He's like, I don't care if I get ridiculed. This feels great. So the Athenians had a derogatory term for bottoms, which was kinadoi. It looks like kinadoi. So masturbation wasn't taboo either. Nobody cared. Women could do it. It was also, but it was like kind of regarded as like a lower sex act, as like if you're more elevated and upscale, you would have sex with, you know, other people. It was like kind of like a debased thing to do. Like, so like slaves, for example, they were like, oh, well, slaves are masturbating. So like, you know, that's what masturbating is for, you know, slaves. We don't masturbate, but like no one cared if you did. So there was also, everybody knows, Greco-Roman culture, they tolerated, encouraged relations with boys for a time. So their relaxed views of like the carnal relationships. Now we would deem this as pedophilia or, you know, reprehensible behavior. But this was when an older man took a younger boy under his wing as like an apprentice or like a guide or a mentor, protege, but also would have sex with them. So there's a lot of different reasons why they would do it, and it kind of ties into like, you know, they wanted these boys to grow up to be proper men, so they would take them under their wing. But it's also, you know, now we would consider it pedophilia, but it wasn't back then. Greeks, in the later part of Greek culture, laws about prostitution began to like be more strict. They were really strict about adultery. Seducing someone's wife was considered like a super terrible offense. But they weren't really interested. They didn't have a sense of shame about sex the way that like Christians and like Anglo cultures, Western cultures have this like
sex is a taboo.
Yeah, sex is a taboo. It's like very like a sinful thing. They didn't have that. So you guys also might know that in any Greek or Roman statues that you found or seen in a museum, the penises are depicted as very small. And this was because there were certain parts of this during this time where they associated having a small penis with having a high intellect. And so
good.
So the, you know, Greco-Roman culture was super, super focused on the ideal man, the Adonis, which is like the perfect male specimen, sorry. And so they would draw and they would paint and they would do these, you know, statues with men having tiny penises because they associated having a large penis with being stupid or a lower intellectual stature. They were
so
really.
Jeremy is pretty dumb then, huh?
Yeah. So like by that standard, yeah, if you had a micro penis, you would be considered like Einstein.
Do you think Einstein had a micro penis?
I don't know. I know he had clinical depression. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I find that interesting. I like that. I feel like that was because some like big thinker or someone like hugely influential was just like, no, I'm very smart. That's why I don't have a big dick.
I don't need to have sex because like I'm too busy thinking. That's why like it's so like all of my development went to my brain. That's why my brain is so big. I'm so smart. It's like I don't need a penis to be that big, you guys. So yeah, there was also, you know, there was stuff that they did. The Greeks and Romans were super horny. Like that's kind of like a well-known thing. They were super horny. They did things to like, they had like the equivalent of aphrodisiacs. So things that they would use for aphrodisiacs would be like eating lizards before they had sex. Another entailed rubbing the penis with a mixture of pepper and honey.
Pepper?
What's with the fucking honey?
So the pepper would. So there's actually some scientific like pepper. If you have pepper on the skin, any kind of pepper, you know, capsaicin will bring blood to the surface. You know, if you eat a hot pepper, you're
all right. Give me a moment. I got to try this.
They'll sometimes become engorged and they'll sting. So I can understand that the rudimentary thought would be pepper would bring blood to the surface and create bigger or firmer erections, possibly.
Yes, but then at the same time, their partner must go, hey, I understand. I get it. The pepper makes you look a little bit bigger and redder.
That's why there's honey. That's why there's honey, because the honey encases it onto it.
You actually bring up a really good point, because in this culture, women, the focus on women's pleasure was not there. They didn't care.
Yeah.
The focus was on men and their virility and their conquering of things and their intimate, their opinion about intimacy was not really regarded as equal to men. Sex work was legal then. This is my favorite part. Dirty humor was a huge part of Greek culture. So there was a play in ancient Greece called Lysistrata, and it's about an Athenian woman who embarks on a sex strike in an attempt to end one of the wars. And the play has a ton of promiscuity, double entendres, dick-related humor. And so there was also a lot of sex-related graffiti in ancient Greece. There's someone called Aristophanes. He had 106 ways to describe the phallus and 91 words for the female genitalia. So some of the graffiti scrawled in Greece said things, and this is proven, they've deciphered it. It said, some of the graffiti in Greece says things like, "Weep, you girls, my phallus has given you up. Now it penetrates men's behinds. Goodbye, wondrous femininity." And then another one was, "Don't perform oral sex on girls against the city wall like a dog." So nothing has changed. This is, as we're going through this, my research has just shown me that humans have not evolved in the least, at least in their brains.
No.
We're just so limited by our short lifespan that we just all think the same thing.
I feel like we've devolved in the way of sex. Thinking about sex, we've devolved in a lot of ways.
We have devolved in a lot of ways. Yeah. I think there, in terms of the orgies and there's a lot of things that, were welcomed and now they're taboo that don't really need to be. And then the last thing I wanted to say was, despite the liberal attitudes about sex in Greco-Roman culture, kissing was taboo. So it was not considered to be a sexual thing to kiss each other on the lips. That was more of a greeting hello. And it was not something they did during sex, or not something that they focused on during sex. Okay, so next we're going to move into medieval times. We're getting closer to pirates, Justin, I promise. So I'm just going to throw into medieval times is another large chunk of history. So I'm going to just throw some of the things that I thought were funny. Medieval times kind of get into where religion infiltrates sexual norms and laws and society's, moral code. And so you start to see a clamping down of things that are considered to be okay, and more things are taboo, and things are kind of taken into the underground. So for example, there was only one position that was legal in medieval times, and that was the missionary position. So if you were caught doing doggy style or anything but the missionary position, you could be punished by law. Premarital sex was punishable by death. It was kind of like a SWAT team. If you were thought to have sex, they would a SWAT team would come to your house and, take you out and kill you. If you had erectile dysfunction, it would completely change your status in society. You would lose all of your it would affect every part of your life, meaning your society standing, your job, your financial opportunities. It would be it was kind of your marriage was over. So, and then no one would want to fuck you in the future. And this is where we start to see condoms come around. And so as a popularity, there's records of condom use in all over history, but condoms were used more popularly. They were used more to deal with STDs than having children, because we were kind of at the point where the more children that you had in medieval society, the more children that you had to work on your farm or whatever your life was like, more children was good. And religion at the time was like, children are a gift from God. And so, the condoms were not really used to limit childbirth. It was more like to keep STDs because we had no idea how to deal with STDs back then. So the things that they would use was the skin of an animal bladder. They would use intestines of like a lamb, which they still have lambskin condoms now. They would use linen, and they were reused. So these were not disposable things.
Just like BJ's brand condoms.
Yeah, like BJ's brand condoms and lube. Buy it now. Thank you for reminding me. I do have to mention, I have to mention the sponsor at least 3 times per episode, so or else we don't get our funding.
Yep,
that's true. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
New reusable condoms coming soon.
Yeah. So they use bread loaves as dildos, which I had a question about that because here's my thing. Do you wait till it's stale? You have to wait till it's stale, right?
No.
Right out of the oven.
And also, like,
it's if really crusty, a really, really nice crusty French,
like a baguette, like a fucking baguette.
Stop that shit and go. Whoop!
Yeah, but it's gotta be a little stale. It's like day 2.5.
No, because you have to pull it right out of the oven, so you can pull it right out of the oven.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing.
Nice and warm.
Fresh bread gets wet easily.
Yeah.
No, but it also absorbs better.
That's what I mean, but you don't want a soggy loaf of bread in your vagooter.
I mean,
once again, I don't think they were thinking about women at this point.
Yeah.
Well, this is what they were using. This is kind of what they were using. I mean, wooden dildos were definitely a thing then, but like they cost money.
So were metal ones.
Well, nobody had money. Everybody was dying of hunger and disease.
Yeah.
So they were like, "I'm just gonna
and
fuck
the plague.
bread."
You go to the bread store for the 10th time that week. I need another loaf, man. What size? Small, like I like it. Big brain.
Oh my god. Okay, so other things that were funny about sex culture. Sex was something that needed to be done, but you were considered to be a sinner if you enjoyed it. So like you could never tell people that you're like, oh my god, my husband, it was so great. We
railed me
last night. Yeah, it was great. They'd be like, oh, you're going to hell. Praying, they
just like nowadays.
Yeah, they thought that if you prayed hard enough, you could get your virginity back. This is the first. I need to send this to the chat. Hold on, Justin. I'm just gonna read what this says. The church views on homosexuality were kind of what they are now, in that it was considered to be
taboo
and taboo and something that was not. But this photo just was kind of, they would do pretty terrible things to homosexuals, anything from burning, hanging, starving, torturing them. So it's really, they had a really terrible view on homosexuals. But this photo was next to it, and it was really funny, and I just wanted you guys to see it because it's the gayest thing I've ever seen. This photo reminds me of the Sistine Chapel in reverse. The Sistine Chapel, how they're like touching fingers. This is like they're touching butts, and I love it.
This is right after.
Yes.
And he just looks, but they just touched, and then he goes, okay, and then he turns around and God is putting his finger up his ass.
Yes. Yeah.
And Adam's just like, oh, how do you do that? That's interesting.
Yeah. He's like, here it is, and he's like, oh, I've got one.
No, this picture is, I want to be the bottom tonight. No, I want to be the bottom.
Yeah, this is what happens when 2 bottoms date. And I like how one of them is like levitating over a tree, and the other one is like riding an ocean wave. I
love how you could just slightly see a penis right there.
Yeah, he's getting the fruit basket underneath.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right, so that's where I'm going to end on medieval sex because it's very funny. So
I believe medieval times also is the beginning of virginity courts too. Of if a woman had lost her virginity before you got married to her, she could have to go to court and literally have to prove she was a virgin, which could either she had to like show the court, hey, look, I still have my hymen, or their new husband could come to the court and fuck her, and if she didn't bleed, then bad shit would happen.
That is such terrible science.
Yes, but there was a way that they came up with for getting over that, and that was if you take a leech and you put it inside you just a little bit, it would bite you, make you bleed, you take it back out, and then the next day when it would bleed.
So there were a lot of ways in which they could fake their virginity, and one of them was the leech thing, where you would just be like, oh, I'm gonna fuck my husband for the first time, I'm a virgin, and then you just like squeege a leech out on the sheet afterwards, so he wakes up and thinks he did a good job. The things we do. Yeah, virginity is a construct. There we go.
Yep.
Okay, so I am now going to talk about the Justin's favorite part. We're going to talk a little bit about medieval, pirates are kind of right after medieval times and all the way up to I don't know, 100 years ago, maybe even less. Pirates are they're huge.
Pirates are Renaissance.
Yeah, pirates are they're also they're all over. They're all over all the time. There's they became a thing and then they never stopped. But I'm going to talk about the cliche era 17th century of the pirate.
Can we get John back to sing the song? Justin, do you have it queued?
No, I do not. No, I don't have it queued. I didn't even think about that. That's good, Steve. I didn't even think about that.
So obviously homosexuality and piracy kind of go hand in hand. Humans are horny by nature, and so if you're stuck on the ocean for months at a time, this is kind of just what's going to happen. But it also kind of folded into their culture. There were, from the birth of the golden age of piracy, which is the 1600s, there was records, and this is, we've got written history now, so there's records of homosexuality, and they would have sex with each other before they would go out on a pillaging voyage, as it's weird why men all throughout history fuck each other to get ready to do battle. I don't get it. I don't understand. Is it
extra testosterone?
Is it the testosterone?
You're getting hyped up. Yes,
that's what I'm saying. Are they just they got to get hyped up? This is a thing that I don't understand because I don't have that going on in my brain. But it seems.
I mean, have you ever destroyed something and you just looked at it and you just get hard because of it?
Ready, Steve?
Yeah.
I can't say that I have.
Because a pirate is free. You are a pirate.
Yes.
Very good. So, different cultures. Is there more?
No, sorry. I accidentally hit it. You're good.
No, I just didn't want to talk over it.
No, you're fine.
So while the British Royal Navy and stuff was punishing sodomy or buggery or what homosexuality is called then.
Buggery?
Buggery. Yeah.
You're echoing.
So this is why when you're British people call you a bugger, that means it's like a slur, not a slur, but it's calling someone gay, or something is sodomy. Sawed off. Okay. Telling sawed off. Those are it's all everything's about penises and being gay, and men are weird. So there were gay buccaneers and there were also lesbian buccaneers, and so there were a ton of same-sex couples in piracy, where you would what was that name that I X'd out of the thing, but there's a I'm going to look it up really quick. There is a name for, okay, there it is. It's called, I don't know if it's matelotage. It's the French word for seamanship, and it's a same-sex civil union amongst sailors, especially pirates, in the 17th and 18th centuries. And what they would do, it's kind of like a civil union. It was in some cases it was a platonic form of insurance, like mutual insurance, but the homosexuality part was common. It validated their relationships. It was considered to be like, oh, they're best friends, but they also are maybe lovers, but they would, protect each other above all else in battle. And they would put their fortunes together as like one larger financial fortune. And, it was kind of it was like a civil union between pirates throughout the golden age of piracy.
And like I said, when you first put this in the chat, it's the two pirates from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because that's like literally what they were. Like without saying it, like that's what they were.
Yeah.
Yes. So there were also state-sponsored pirates. There were people. They would they were sponsored by the government to do pirate shit.
Yeah.
And so Captain Morgan, for example, when he attacked Panama in the 1670s, he drew up a contract for his crew in which if they lost a hand or foot in battle, they would get 600 pieces of compensation. They were called pieces of 8. It's fucking coins of some kind. If they lost their legs, they would get 1,800 pieces, 200 for one eye, 2,000 if they became blind. So that was like I thought that this is not sex related, but this is the first form of like pirate health insurance that I saw. And it's Captain Morgan. It's literally the Captain Morgan who did that. So I thought that was really fucking cool. And then, so this is a quote from a buccaneer named Alexander Exquemelin. It is the general and solemn custom amongst them all to seek out a comrade or companion whom we may call partner, with whom they join the whole stock of what they possess.
The whole stock.
Yeah. So that goes back into like the mate. It's called the mate lot. Mate lot. I don't know.
Maybe.
Matelote. I don't know. It's French. However, if one of these partners died, his partner inherited his money. In some cases, if one of them broke a law and wanted a punishment, his partner could offer to take half or whole of the punishment in his place. And in battle, they fought like as a duo and often died together. And the partnership was almost always sexual. And it was a very respected way of living through pirates. There was also a lot of cross-dressing female pirates. Mary Read and Anne Bonny are the most famous, and they were super masculine. There was also some reports of Mary going by the name of Mark, and this kind of offers us a look into people who are either identifying as a different gender than they are assigned at birth, which I thought was really cool. And then some reports say that she preferred the role of a young man when she was being addressed in her dress and things like that. So there was a lot of like gender non-conforming people in the pirate world. So pirates were like, long story short, pirates were super gay. Which is why I like the term butt pirate, because it just makes everything that more I like it a lot. I really like the way that pirates were like super open and welcoming to gay and lesbian relationships, and even like trans adjacent people calling, there was evidence of people calling people by their preferred pronouns rather than the ones that they were given at birth. And everything just seemed very open and welcoming, and that they like actually protected their own in that way. And I thought that was really neat, because on land and in the mainland, like, the rest of Europe's culture was like doing really restrictive, misogynistic shit. And so it was really neat to see that juxtaposition of the two.
Well, that is, I think, like a really big, like, wow, I don't know why it's so shocking, because like, it sounds like, hey, I don't feel like at home in society because I have this thing. And they're like, well, I could go to the ocean where no one will fucking judge me. And if I'm going to be an outlaw anyway, I might as well be a fucking pirate outlaw instead of being over here where people are going to, where I have to listen to fucking church yell at me all the time. So I'm going to go get paid to fucking do pirate shit. Why not?
Like 100 out of 100 times. So I am someone who I probably would have burned at the stake in most cultures. But like, I feel like, for like a million reasons, but, if I had lived during that time, I probably most likely would have ended up as a pirate, because I am very much like, it draws out the people who are non-conforming and the people who don't feel a need to fit in and, you know, have a life that's very different. And so I thought that was really interesting for me to learn about. I didn't know about any of that. And I thought that was really cool. So yeah. So next we're going to move on to, and like, this is by no means an exhaustive list of every time period of everywhere. This is just kind of where I found the most available information. So we're going to move into, the Victorian era. So in the Victorian era, this is where shit gets silly.
This is where the dildo came from, right?
Victorians are fucking weird. No, dildos have been around forever. You saw the stone thing, but yeah.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. Is the first actual, like, the first thing that was made, that the first documented. Where is it? It was made by a doctor.
You mean the first vibrator?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was So this is where the concept of hysteria comes from.
Right. So
because women who were anxious or stressed or sick or I don't know, being repressed by society. There was any number of reasons why they would diagnose them with hysteria, which is funny because when you get a hysterectomy, you get your uterus taken out. And so hysteria is basically like madness of uterine madness. And so what they did was the way to treat hysteria was to masturbate them. And what I think this is women just weren't having orgasms. And so that would make anybody pissed off. I would be pissed off if I had to wear like a fucking wig and a corset and these big ass dresses. And like my stupid husband was like, I don't know, talking about dumb shit all day. And I wasn't allowed to do anything. And the sex was terrible and everybody smelled because they weren't showering. That would make anybody.
Just missionary also.
So the Victorian era is where it's weird how like different things open up. The Victorian era was like, there was a little bit of like liberation in terms of like sexual positions.
Yeah.
But like, it was also like behind closed doors. You were like, you were okay to be a freak, but you did it behind closed doors and you didn't really talk about it. And if you did, you talked about it quietly. So here's some things that I thought were funny when I was researching sex in Victorian times. Men would never take their coat off around women. It was considered rude and inappropriate to take like your suit coat off around a woman. However, they would get absolutely naked around other men. Why is everyone so gay? All the time through history, everyone's gay. I don't understand what's going on. So the reason why they would do this, and this is funny, there's a reason behind this, and it has nothing to do with being gay. The reason is because they smelled bad because they didn't shower. And so it was inappropriate to take your jacket off around a woman because you didn't want to smell bad around her. Bathing was not a thing. Bathing was optional. Hygiene was optional then. So it was kind of like a BO control mechanism. And then when men were around men, they didn't even care. So whatever.
There was points that like the church basically said taking a bath is sinful. Mm-hmm. Like you shouldn't bathe because it's bad. Because
you're letting all the stank out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bathe like once or twice a year, and that's it.
So prostitution was okay. However, being gay would get you killed, except for if you were a lesbian. So being homosexuality for men was considered an outlawed. Homosexuality between women was not. Prostitution was rampant and like everybody knows about like the 1800s prostitutes in London. That's like, anytime anyone does a movie or a video game or a TV show about London, there's whores everywhere. That's just kind of like the thing. So like it was saying that there were, by 1857, there was nearly 9,000 prostitutes working just in London. So it was a good job to have.
I mean, it really tells you, that really illustrates the picture of how Jack Ripper basically would just like kill 2 prostitutes at night just by walking down the street, and he would just kill 2 prostitutes, and that would be it.
Yeah, and there was a lot of like, it was weird. Women were looked down upon for having sex, but prostitution was welcomed, and it was a weird dichotomy, the same way that like, so for example, women were expected to have a lot of babies, but they also were expected to be like prudish and not have a lot of sex. So like those two things don't really go together. And, you know, it was just a very strange, it was strange to go with like the push of society and religion to have as many babies as possible, mixed with the society and religion repression of sexuality. It was essentially like, women are supposed to procreate. They're not supposed to enjoy sex. And you're supposed to like be like, oh no, I don't have any sex except for to, you know, there was, so doctors would also perform something called a clitoridectomy on women who showed signs of like insanity or hysteria, where they would essentially remove the clitoris so you couldn't enjoy sex. It relieved women of that sexual desire that made them have sex for any other reason besides procreation. The age of consent in Victorian time was 10 years old. There was no sexual education. So yeah, that's some weird facts about Victorians. And then here's some other ones. Here's just some weird sex tips that I found from the Victorian era. There was ways, well, this one's about sexual assault, so I'm not gonna read it. They used to have orgasm contests. So they believed that when trying to conceive, the child would turn out more like whoever had the best orgasm from the sex that was had. So if the woman came harder, the baby would look like the woman. And if the man came harder, the baby would look like the man. So by that token, it seems as though everybody would come out looking like the man, because the women were not allowed to enjoy sex, and they also were having their clits cut off. So this was a fun time, wasn't it? Yeah. So they would say that dancing for a few minutes before sex would prevent pregnancy. Riding a horse before sex would prevent pregnancy. Or like riding a horse the next day. So like you'd have sex and then the next day you'd ride a horse on like rough terrain. They thought that masturbation would stunt your growth and drive you insane, hence the hysteria part.
But doctors gave you an orgasm if they thought you were scared.
Yeah, see, this is the weird dichotomy, like oxymoronical thing that I've seen. You were said to prevent the urge to masturbate by eating bland foods. So like you had to, in order to like avoid.
Explains British cooking.
I was gonna say, so like you would avoid mustard, pepper, gravy, wine, you know, anything that would be like taste really tasty, you would avoid it because it would make you want to masturbate.
Damn, this good food makes me want to jerk off. Yeah.
I know, right? Ooh, this
they must have
spicy
thought
food.
that.
You know what?
They must have thought that Indian people were just fucking all over the place.
Yeah. Well, Native American. So like, I don't have a ton.
No, not Native Americans. Indians. Like with the curries and.
Well, no, because like that was like such a small part of like Indian culture that it was like not even something that was that spoken about. But yeah, like I mean.
Well, no, the food. I'm saying like the Victorian England.
Maybe that's why they made the Kama Sutra. Maybe that's why the Kama Sutra was made, because everybody's having spicy, yummy foods. I love Indian food. Okay. If you can't come at the same instant as your partner, you're a failure. So one of the few rights granted to Victorian women was the ability to refuse their husband sex if he could not achieve mutual adjustment, which is the orgasm of the woman and the
adjustment.
So mutual adjustment is like mutual orgasm. And if you couldn't, this is so weird. If you couldn't do this, a woman could refuse you sex. But at the same time, if you have your fucking clitoris cut off, how are you gonna have, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're doing everything. They're stacking all of the deck against women being able to have an orgasm, but then saying you can yell at your husband if you can't come. I don't like. This was the part of my research where I was just like, nobody has any idea what's going on, and everything contradicts itself, and it's crazy.
Well, yeah, because you weren't supposed to talk about it either.
Yeah, it was super repressed.
Yeah, so you weren't supposed to talk about it. So of course everything was getting confused because nobody was fucking talking about shit.
Yes. You also were supposed to have sex in complete darkness. It was also, which is like ridiculous. You also, it was like considered an insult, and also like a way to abort a fetus to sneeze after sex. So like women would sneeze after sex and the man would be like, are you trying to kill our baby? And then, you know, cause stupid. Having sex. So if you don't like, so if you didn't give your all during sex, like if you didn't bring your A game, then your kids would be ugly. They thought that if you had like lazy sex, your kid would be ugly, which, you know, I don't know what that says about my parents, but
the question is, what do you count as lazy sex?
Also, who the fuck is like, who is judging you? Who's there? Like, are you, is it like a self-judge? Like, oh, I'm being too lazy having sex right now. I got to try harder. My kid's going to look like, I don't know, Sloth from the Goonies.
Or is it the people walking past your kid that's like, damn, that kid's ugly.
You must have had some lazy sex.
They must just lay next to each other and just every once in a while go, ugh.
Yeah, you gave him a sad hand job, didn't you? And then whatever you did, you weren't supposed to have sex on stairs. A child that was conceived on a set of stairs is most likely to be born with a crooked back. You couldn't have sex while you were tired.
I see the association there, but I see the association there, but like the science part of my brain is so just stupid. Like, no, I know it's extremely stupid, but at a very basic level, you see the association, like crooked back, sex on stairs. Like you see the association. I'm not saying
I do see the association. I just think it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's smart. I'm just saying there is an association. That's like saying
if you have sex in the ocean or a body of water, you're going to give birth to a jellyfish. That doesn't make any. There's no.
No, because
that's why it was a jellyfish.
This wasn't just about their kids back then. This was how they did medicine. Was
yes. They had ghosts in their blood. They said that their blood was haunted.
Yeah.
Wasn't it you have ghosts in your blood? You gotta take some heroin or something like that?
Yeah, like, oh yeah, you got ghosts in your blood. You should do cocaine about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was essentially Victorian everything. Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to say about Victorian sex, I'm going to go back to the prostitutes, and we talked about this a little bit last episode. I was really excited about the concept of Victorian merkins. So merkins, for those of you who don't know, merkins are a pubic wig. And so in Victorian times, there was a ton of prostitutes, and therefore STDs were super rampant because we didn't have, cures for those like we do now. And so in order to prevent the disease from traveling from person to person quickly, they would shave their pubic area and take all of the hair off. However, STDs were so prevalent in prostitutes that it would like kind of disform. I mean, you guys know that there are certain STDs that give you warts and give you scars and, transform your genitalia into a not so pleasing visual thing.
Blue waffle.
Yeah. Oh, no. No.
Oh, God.
No. Anyways,
the worst
so in order to prevent the unsightly nature of having, bumps on the log, they would wear merkins. And so like everything in Victorian times, the style was like out of control. And so prostitutes and this kind of like spread to high society in Victorian times too. So like high society women would like wear merkins for their gentlemen or their husbands or whatever. Like, so this was the thing that was not just for prostitutes. It kind of bled out into all areas of society.
Well, that's because some rich dickhead came home to his wife and was like, you know, the prostitute down the street's got this really cool thing down there.
Yeah.
It's all bejeweled.
Cool.
Okay, no, Steve, they did. They would put ribbons and they would put like little plant, like sprigs of plants, and they would put like beads and fabric. They would do like weaving and braiding. They would make like these elaborate, they would actually bejewel, like the people who had the money for it would bejewel their merkins. So that you know, if you were rich, you would come home and you'd go to have sex with your husband in the dark, and he would see or not see because you were in the fucking dark. You would bejeweled merkin.
Off the moonlight, a glitter.
Honey, believe me, this merkin is so bejeweled. If the lights were on, which they can't be, you would see how bejeweled this merkin is.
How
really
popular?
It just looks like a dead squirrel with beads hanging off.
Yeah, it was just hair, and that's a lot of what it was. It was animal pelts. It was a lot of different things. But
how popular do you think oral sex was in Victorian England?
Well,
with the not so much on the bathing. Like
no one was bathing. Everyone had STDs.
Yeah.
They were wearing lots of layers of clothing. I feel like I'm sure that there's people that didn't care and were super horny and did it, I'm sure. But I can't imagine that it was as enjoyable for anyone as it is these days because of hygiene. Right. I would say, you know, even before knowing what I know in this very small sliver of research about sex, I guarantee that humans have been sucking each other off since like Neanderthal times or before. There's proof of those. What are those baboons that live in colonies of all women, and they rub their vaginas together, and they, you know, there's monkeys that 69 all the time. So this is like a thing. It's a mammal thing. Mammals just like they oral sex is kind of a mammal thing. So
penis, mouth.
Yeah, there it goes.
I mean, dolphins, blowholes.
Yeah, dolphins kill fish, rip the head off, and fuck the body hole. This is like,
okay, we're not going to go anywhere near sex and dolphins because that goes down a whole other route of the dark web that we don't want to go down.
Right, so, correct. However, there is documented evidence of dolphins trying to gang rape humans. And they gang rape
I was talking about something else, but
no, we're not talking. No, we're not. No bestiality. Although
that's not what I was talking about either. But that's fine. I'm sure Ryan knows what I'm talking about.
Don't corrupt me. I actually was going to talk a little bit about bestiality because bestiality is something that there's reference in cave paintings to bestiality, and there is written proof of Greco-Roman bestiality and medieval bestiality, and I'm sure Victorian bestiality. Like there's outliers that do weird, gross stuff.
I mean,
if there's a hole, a guy will fuck it.
No, absolutely not. No. Okay, so now that we've got past Merkins, I'm not doing it. I'll do it later when I have. I don't know. I'm doing it later. Okay, so now we've gotten to the 1900s. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys some, terrible sex advice from every decade since the 1900s. Like, we mostly know how, the development of sex has been this century. But I'm going to give you some terrible sex tips. In the 1900s, people didn't sleep in the same bed as their partner. To keep your sex life hot, you didn't actually sleep in the same bed. It was said that, like, by sleeping in the same bed, it, like, relieved, like, you needed that, like, temptation of sleeping in separate beds, which is terrible because, like, I feel, you only sleep in the same bed to have sex, to get pregnant, and that was it. So people in the 1900s were lame and they slept in separate beds, which was kind of a thing up until like the 60s. In the 1910s, masturbation was thought to lead to disease, mental illness, and the destruction of society. Parents were advised to monitor their kids' sexual appetites and step in and stop them if they showed signs of masturbation. So they recognized that, like, masturbation scientifically are, was something that ramped up in their teenage years because of puberty, but that's when they said that like, you were at risk of mental illness, and so you had to like stop your. So there was a lot of like sexually repressed teenagers in the 1910s. In the 1920s, they continued that and tackled masturbation with women by those gender mutilation things. So they would cut off the clitoris of the woman in the 20s as well. So this is like less than 100 years ago that this is happening. So if the girls and women were shown to have like a penchant for masturbating a lot, or mental illness or whatever, they would cut off their genitals to stop them from doing that. In the 30s, it was said that if you rejected a woman, she would go insane. So it was said that if a woman is rejected, she cannot control herself. If she's rejected, she becomes truly wild. Her eyes sparkle in anger and almost burst out of their sockets. It's very close to total insanity. Which, no. No. Absolutely not. I feel like this is the other way around. I feel like there's been men that I've rejected that I thought their eye was going to fall out of their head. Okay, the 40s, you're not supposed to talk to your husband in bed. And you're especially not supposed to talk to them dirty in bed. So the bed was for sleeping, fucking, and that was it. You weren't supposed to there was no pillow talk. So I'll read you this quote. Women frequently shock men with their talk in bed. They use words and expressions that are seldom used even in saloons. Their talk is also repulsive in other aspects. They say such things as, "Oh, darling, I've been with many men, so I know. I want to tell you that you are the best, really, darling. It's truly astounding how many relatively decent women lose all control of their mouths and minds when they jump into bed beside a man." So this is where you start to get into the misogynistic, the misogynistic thing that women are the reason why, of all the evil in the world, women's promiscuity. And then in the 1950s, not adhering to your husband's every sex wish makes cheating okay, which is essentially the plot of Mad Men. And that's the way I feel. If you've ever seen Mad Men, it was essentially just Californication set in the 50s.
Yes.
So it was essentially you either fulfill every one of his expectations, his goals, be a good housewife, be a good mother, be a good housekeeper, have sex with him when he wants, do everything right. And if you do anything wrong, he has he can cheat on you, which is essentially a free pass for a man to be like, "Oh, you didn't make me happy, I'm going to cheat on you." So there was a lot of rampant cheating in the 50s, obviously, because of things like that. That was the thought of the 50s. In 1960s, there was a fear of petting that went on, and that was essentially any type of sexual action before marriage. They said that it would ruin your reputation. This is where we get into premarital sex, and having loose morals would cause you to break your parents' hearts and not get a good job and not marry a good man. And so that was what the 60s. And then in the 70s, we were getting into the free love phenomenon, but also at the same time, while couples were feeling less inhibited about giving and receiving pleasure, and sex was starting to become a more liberated concept, there was also a opposing thought that a broken hymen makes you seem promiscuous. And we now know that some people are born without a hymen. Some people are born with a partially formed hymen. A hymen can be broken during yoga or running or horseback riding or dancing or any number of things. You could just stretch the wrong way and you're high, or there's no, and some people are born without them and some people are born with them not there. And so that is an antiquated thing. The idea of there being a cherry to pop is kind of that's where it kind of reached its crescendo of popularity. And also the 70s is when that book, that groundbreaking book from the 70s called Our Bodies, Ourselves, And that was like kind of like the book that every parent and teacher gave to adolescents and teens to learn about sex. When you're giving them the talk, you give them a copy of Our Bodies, Ourselves. And it was very antiquated by today's standards. So the 1980s, the thought women were over the notion that you had to wait for a man. And the concept of women making the first move became popular. And also it was said that if you want to reject a man, if you want to let him down easy, you just make yourself seem entirely unappealing. So you would just become unappealing to that man rather than normally say, well, nowadays women would say, no, I don't want to go out with you. But in the 80s, it was like you would make yourself seem unappealing. In the 90s, one of the things that was funny was right when we were getting into the beginning of the internet, the boom of the early internet, and we were having like rudimentary, not AI, but we were like getting into the beginnings of the concepts of AI. And so in the 90s, there was this huge thought that sex bots would destroy marriage as we knew it. In 1997, an article called Impacts of Robotic Sex appeared in the Futurist magazine. And posed the concern that sexy sex bots were going to replace women in bed. Marriages were thought to maybe being destroyed. A husband choosing sex with a sex bot over his wife, alienating his wife. So that was like a huge. They have a
whole thing about that in Futurama.
Yeah. And then we get to the 2000s, which are kind of very much. Everyone who's listening to this podcast has been alive for that part, so hopefully so that's kind of like a piece by piece of this century. So I wanted to touch a little bit on the future of sex, and I know that has a lot of crossover with sex toys and kinks that we'll do next week, because next week we're going to talk about kinks, toys, fetishes, all of like the things that make sex.
Steve's favorite episode.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's the cooking. It's like how to like sex on its own is like a peanut butter sandwich, but with like kinks and fetishes and toys, you can turn it into like a 3-course gourmet Michelin star meal. Or you can make it a really terrible, over-salted, overcooked steak with gross ketchup on it, depending on what you do.
Or some people just like the peanut butter sandwich instead of peanut butter and jelly.
Some people don't like to eat at all. I am going to touch on asexuality.
True.
Yeah, I'm going to touch a little bit on asexuality next week because that's important too. I want to have representation. But anyways, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of sex right now. So where's the future of sex going? Can any of you guess where the future of sex is going? It's pretty obvious if you are alive. Yeah, so the internet has created an unprecedented amount of accessibility to satisfying and fulfilling sex lives for everyone. The era of internet porn is now in its 30 something year. Yeah. I remember being like a teenager searching for sex.com when I was like in my teens, and there would be like the internet would load. I was on dial-up internet and the website would load one little part at a time. And it was just like, that was the only thing that I could think to search for.
I mean, hell, I remember watching late TV at night and trying to find that one channel
Cinemax.
That didn't actually come into focus, but it was still there. And you're like, hey, look, there's a boob. Is that a boob? And you're like masturbating. You're like, is that a boob? I think that's a boob.
It was Cinemax.
No, this is before Cinemax.
What was before Cinemax?
This is when the TV literally like had.
It was when cable was one whole thing, and you got all of the channels, but only the ones you paid for came into focus.
Yeah, they were warped.
Yeah, it was like warped. It was like going like this, and it was like staticky, but not staticky because it was like the colored statics. Yeah. See, we all remember. We all
except for Travis. Travis is the only one. Travis is sitting there going, "I don't know. I've been able to just look up."
Wait, Travis. Travis, what year were you born in?
2001.
Oh fuck. Yeah. So oh my god.
He missed out on the 90s.
He never had to experience going, I'm going to find a dirty tape and find that, or pause.
No, he never experienced
a movie to see a boob. He could literally go at any time on his phone and go, this is the exact fetish, the exact hair color. This is the exact thing I want to fucking see.
He never had to deal with that.
You know what he never experienced? Being halfway through downloading a picture to masturbate to it, and all of a sudden someone uses the fucking phone and it stops loading.
Yep. So you get the top half and that's it. And you never had to
pausing that scene in Revenge of the Nerds.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was telling Devin about that when we watched it the other day.
He's
also how many times I masturbated to Panty Raid.
He also was like way past the like puberty rite of passage of like stealing your uncle's Playboys or like stealing a magazine. Like that was like not a thing when you were born too. Like, dude, I lost my virginity the year after you were born. I just did the math of that. That is wild.
Nice.
That is so crazy to me. Yeah. I'm just picturing you as a baby, and then me in the ocean in Clearwater Beach, Florida.
In the ocean?
No, I lost my virginity in the ocean. It's a long story.
To a dolphin?
Yeah, it was a dolphin. Yeah. It was a dolphin. I miss him. Yeah. So
haunts your dreams to this day.
That's why I love the ocean. That's why I go swimming so much. I'm hoping.
You just sit there and call.
Yeah.
Hey, that's not even a joke. Dolphins have been known to try and rape women.
Yeah,
so.
that's what I was saying. Dolphins are like weirdly horny and like rapey. It's gross.
They're the only other mammal that has sex for fun.
Well,
no, don't monkeys?
Monkeys
do.
There's species of primate that do that. There's lesbian colonies of baboons that will do cool sex stuff for funsies.
Yeah, monkeys just fuck each other all the time.
Cool sex stuff for funsies. Yeah, they have these. There's these. Hold on, I gotta find it. Hold on, I got it because I say that and then people are like, "You're fucking crazy." Lesbian baboon colony. That's literally. Dude,
your CIA agent is going. What?
I just want to say that if you're my FBI agent and you've seen my Google searches this week, I am like this close to the SWAT team coming. The amount of weird sex shit that I have Googled in the name of this episode is just like ridiculous. Yeah. So I don't know where it is. I'll find it. There's a colony of baboons that are all female and they just all like rub their organs together. They're like essentially scissoring.
Scissor.
Yeah. They're like monkey scissoring. So anyways, the
monkey
future of essentially the future of human sexuality is going to AI and the internet, not just by like high-tech sex toys. Like they have those sex toys where like you can be 10,000 miles away from your partner and you put the sex toy on and they put the sex toy, the alternate sex toy on, and your sex toys move in the same way that your partner is moving. So on and so forth. And then we'll get into it a little bit next week, but the sex doll industry is like booming, and
sex robots, they've come to destroy the world.
I know the technology of sex dolls is getting insane. I watched a documentary about they're implanting AI into the heads of sex dolls so that they can have advanced conversations with the people who own them, and it's really interesting in the way that they're like
so how's your day going?
Well, that's the thing. So like I was watching this documentary and they were like making eye contact and had these really human like facial expressions, and were like holding their own in conversation with this person about what they like to do, and then all of a sudden they just kind of like would veer off into horny shit, being like, do you want to just come fuck me right now? And I was like, this is very much, I'm not comfortable with this, but it's also very interesting to me. You know what I mean? It's like really
the newest models, the ones you're talking about that are going to have AI and stuff in it, will have different modes. So you could turn it on to how horny you are for like, you could change it in the app of like oh, I'm this horny, so she needs to be this horny. Or
I want her to be 40% horny. Yeah. So exactly. So for example, there's Harmony, a robotic version of a sex toy made by Real Doll, who is connected to an app on your phone, and has a smart vibrator inside her vagina. So,
but there's also male ones too.
Yes, and the same thing for men. Yes, exactly. I'm not trying to say that men are the only people who have sex dolls. There are plenty of all genders enjoy sex dolls.
The thing is, I don't get about the male sex doll is like if it feels like if for women that
we don't need it,
or like there's funner toys that cost a lot less. And also, like, I get the part of having the sex doll is also for the companionship.
Yes.
Because, like, a lot of the people who buy them, like 97% of the people who buy them are people who are lonely and who have given up on having a relationship, or have their spouse died or something.
Or they're like super unsuccessful, socially awkward, and that's So
however, I want someone companionship, and also I want something that I have sex with. But I mean, like, the male sex doll isn't really going to really sell out until it can like
So okay, so you have I've thought about this, and you have to take into consideration, in my opinion, the way that masculine and feminine people think about sex. The male brain, for the most part, and like I am fully aware and supportive of there being a wide range of genders and gender expressions, and this, I'm going to be super simplistic in my language now, but the male brain, scientifically, it reacts more intensely to sexual stimuli on a visual scale. So they want to, in order for them to, to be engaged, they think about images and they see images. Women are more aroused by emotional and like physical touch. And so because women have a more sensitive, men don't have as many sensory, like they can't feel things as sensitively as women can. That's why your skin is rougher and things like that. We have a more sensitive sense of touch. And so when you think about sex dolls, men need that visual representation of, again, heterosexual. I'm using heterosexual men as a simplified opinion option for this. They need that, I want a woman. I want to see the boobs. I want to feel the boobs. I want to have the imagery. I want to hear the sounds. And that's gonna, like, women don't need that. Like this. Okay. I brought this so we could talk about it. There's no dick that looks anything like this at all. But women don't need that. Women if you look at sex toys for people that own vaginas, like the way vaginas works, we in fact need things that aren't really shaped like penises. You see like rabbit vibrators that have like the clitoral, it's like the vibrator, and then there's a little clitoral thing on top, because like that's the penis, which it's kind of rude that the penis hasn't evolved to have that.
Do you know the backstory behind the rabbit?
No, but tell me.
What?
The backstory behind the rabbit vibrator is actually originally to get around censorship in Japan.
Really?
In order to make things make vibrators and stuff like that, they had to make it like a cute thing, like a cute toy.
Like a toy.
So they put animals on it, and that's when they discovered that, hey, we could put things like a rabbit or a dolphin,
butterfly. I've seen a butterfly too.
Yes.
That's insane to me.
Yes. Yeah.
That's wild. I love that. That's innovation.
That took off because of an episode of Sex and the City.
Oh, really?
She went to the sex shop and she bought a rabbit.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I knew. I just thought that the rabbit came about because the clit exists, and a lot of vagina having humans need.
Well, yeah, but this is
both types of stimulation.
Yeah.
I thought it was just kind of. I thought it was kind of just naturally. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So back to what we were saying. Like, yeah, women don't really need. They need. The focus is more on like getting to the parts of them in the ways that they need to get. Like men can like cut a hole in a fucking pumpkin and come, you know what I mean? Like they don't need, but they focus on the physical attributes. Women are more like, the technology has to be the right shape and speed. And
I feel like we're getting into basically what we're going to be talking about next week. So maybe we should pick this up again next week.
Yes.
But
yeah, I was about to say.
Another very interesting study to look up is actually Pornhub does a lot of studies, like their own internal studies. And one of the interesting ones that you should look up and look into is what women like in porn versus what men like in porn. Because men tend to like porn where you could see either the partner's, the woman or the male part, whatever it is, the partner's face and the partner's body. And like it could even not even show down below at all. Like there could be no good angle. But women tend to like porn where you can actually see the act going on, like pointed the camera at it, which is interesting to me.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. All right. So I'm going to end this with like a kind of a bridge, just because this is the silliest thing that I've ever seen in my entire life. Justin, I'm going to send you this and I want you to put it on there because it's funny. So out of all the things I've seen, this is funny. So cock rings, we're going to talk about cock rings, and this leads us into sex toys and fetishes for next week. And the first recorded evidence of cock rings were made from goat eyelashes. So it was like a little piece of goat skin covered in goat eyelash, or like, sewn in goat eyelashes. So I'm not really sure. You can see, again, if you're listening on Spotify, please go watch on YouTube because this is too silly. I don't really know what this does in terms of like, I don't think it does what cock rings do now in terms of like blood flow restriction and things like that. But this just seems like a microbial nightmare. It's essentially just like a ring of fabric with goat eyelashes all around it, like some gross Pokemon.
It looks like a taint tickler.
Yeah, I think that's what that probably, this seems like it would probably just be like a little tickle, but then like it would just get wet and gross. You know what I mean?
Who the fuck looked at goat eyelashes and was like, yeah, those.
Listen, with the amount of bestiality, that I saw in just what I realized, there is no doubt in my mind that some dude was like milking a goat or like just thinking weird shit, and they look like, that goat has really long eyelashes. I bet they'd feel real good on my balls. And that's how that started. Men are so weird.
Yeah.
And we're so impulsive that we're just going to do it anyway.
Okay, so we're
honey, why are all the goats dead? All the goats' eyeballs are gouged out. Don't worry about it.
They don't need to see.
So we're gonna start from there, and we're gonna launch into.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is recommendation time.
Yay.
Okay, so who's got one in the chamber? Who wants to go?
I have one in the chamber that I would like to talk
about. After that episode, I think we all got one in the chamber.
Everybody's got one in the chamber. All right, so I wore my favorite shirt of all time. So this is my big. So if you're listening, I have a shirt on that says "Big Dildo Energy," and this shirt is from a amazing creative performance act called the Slut Cracker. And if you live in Boston or New England, you've probably heard of the Slut Cracker. And what the Slut Cracker is a modern burlesque and dance retelling of the Nutcracker. And it is all super sexy, super horny, super silly, super funny. And the people who are involved in it are extremely talented. It's professional dancers, professional acrobats, professional burlesque performers, some of the best of what Boston and the surrounding areas has to offer. The Slut Cracker has been going on for years. They did not do a performance last year because obviously nothing was happening, and I believe they are doing it this year. I have done makeup for them in the past, and I intend to do it on the future. And it is just like the most amazing ruckus of a time. It's at the Somerville Theater in November and December, or maybe just December. I don't know, in the Christmassy season, because it's a take on the Nutcracker. It's really funny. It's really well done. There is, the only thing that I will say about it is at some point there is like a 20-foot candy cane dick that shoots bubbles, and there's like so much, there's so much more. There's amazing dancing and burlesque and acrobatics and pole work, and it's amazing. It's amazing. The costumes are great. The music is great. So yeah. And obviously, their marketing is hilarious because this is the kind of shirts that you come out wearing. So yeah, I know it's a little bit early to think about Christmas time, but I want to make sure that this performance gets as many eyes as possible. So I'll keep talking about it a couple times before then, but since I'm wearing the shirt, I wanted to talk about the Slutcracker. So you can go to the slutcracker.com if you want to see anything about the past.
Val, you don't say Christmas too loud in my household, or Devin will show up behind me like an apparition and go, Christmas.
Is she one of those people that like the day after Halloween she puts Christmas stuff up?
Oh, she would have Christmas Hallmark stuff up right now if I would be happy with it.
She's one of those Hallmark.
It's so weird. So my birthday is Christmas Eve, but I'm a Halloween person. So like I am not a Christmas decoration person. So it's always been really funny to me because I'm like I want to put Halloween decorations up right now. And it's always funny to me to see Christmas people being like, it's November 1st. It's time.
Yeah.
So I'll go next. There is a game that just came out recently. It's free on Game Pass, and I'm absolutely in love with it. It's called The Ascent. I'm going to throw a screenshot up right here. This is what the game looks like. Actually gameplay looks like. It is a cyberpunk twin stick shooter RPG, which is just freaking fucking cool. And it's a gorgeous game. It's so fucking fun to play. It's just set in such a cool, basically there's like different levels to the city, and you're like on the lowest levels. The first mission you have to go on is to like reset like the system that takes the sewage out from like the top layers and shit. But the combat is amazing. The story is great. The just everything. It's called The Ascent. I highly recommend it. It's free on Game Pass, and I think it's like $25 or something like that on Steam. So, yeah. So that is my recommendation. The Ascent. It just came out, I think, last week, and it is great. So there we go.
I could go next. I would try. I was thinking about something else, but since we were talking about so much about Greek and Roman sexuality, I feel like replugging a show I haven't seen in a while, but I used to love, Spartacus, Blood and Sand.
Amazing.
Fucking amazing show. Spartacus, Blood and Sand is the story of Spartacus. Season 1 is different from season 2 and 3 and 4 because it's a completely different actor. It's an older show. He used to be on Stars, I want to say, or Showtime.
Mm-hmm. Stars.
But it is the single greatest show to watch. Like if you thought that fucking Game of Thrones was bloody and full of sex, you don't know shit, because Spartacus Blood and Sand is literally, it will go from a scene where there is a full-on orgy that they're showing every single fucking thing happening, full penetration happening, and then suddenly it'll fucking splice cut to someone getting their intestines pulled out of their body. It is fucking insanity. It is such a good show.
Not to mention, if you were really into Xena way back when Xena was popular, you get to see her naked.
Yes, Xena is in the show, and she gets railed a lot in the show too.
Yes, she does.
Hey, Val, I don't know if you noticed what I changed your name to at the very beginning of the show.
I'm Great Value. I'm Great Value. Yeah, I saw.
Okay.
Val, have you seen Spartacus?
I have seen Spartacus. It's wicked horny.
Yes.
Spartacus is horny as fuck.
Spoken like a true Bostonian.
Yeah.
Wicked horny, yo.
It's wicked
horny.
Kid. It's wicked horny, kid.
All right, who's next?
I'll go next. Mine's more of a PSA. If there is a sign on a door that says wet wax, don't go through the fucking door. Don't be idiots.
Were you at like a massage parlor or something like that?
No, this is at work.
I love your very, very, very niche recommendation.
Yeah.
Literally.
But it. I understand. Like sometimes you just gotta let the world know because of someone's stupidity.
I mean, these aren't just kids doing this. This is teachers. This is administration that there's a sign that says "Do not enter." Rug is wet because it was just cleaned. And what do? Oh, that meant for me? And they go in there anyway. They pull in all the students in there anyway, and they fuck it up anyway.
Steve, let me tell you this. Before I did the career that I have now, I was a preschool teacher and then a preschool administrator for a short time. And my least favorite part of working in education was the stupidity of the teachers that I worked with. It wasn't the children.
Yeah.
Teachers are so goddamn dumb. And it goes to show, my lesson learned from that is that there is book smarts and there's street smarts. And teachers usually have book smarts and no street smarts, which is why you have problems like you have now.
I mean, they don't even have book smarts anymore.
Yeah, and that's giving them a lot.
Yeah, seriously. Like everything's on the computer anyway. So if they don't know it, they're just like, oh, just look it up.
Just Google it.
Google it.
Maybe they should Google whether or not to walk on a wet wax floor.
No, they go, oh, is it actually still wet as you're waxing right in front of them? You're just like,
the sign is there. No,
it's dry. I'm just doing nothing over here. Like the principals, everyone in the building is just like, oh, was that sign meant for me? No, it's just there to look pretty.
I feel your pain, Steve. I feel your pain.
Like, it's what I've been dealing with for the past couple weeks is the stupidity of decision making of we need to get the building clean to, oh, but can you actually just move this over here? No, it doesn't look good over there. Can you just move it back over there? Actually, we're gonna need that over there. Actually, for this room, can you take that out and put it over there as well? And can you just
I don't.
At least, hey Steve, at least you don't have to listen to the same joke by every old person that you drive past.
Oh my god!
Wait, what's the joke that you hear over and over?
Oh, don't give me any bills.
Oh god!
I
hear that 10 times a fucking day.
You know.
I know the pain because I work with a bunch of older people. I am still the youngest person that works at my job, and that says a lot. And I have a lot more seniority than a lot of these people. And these people will tell the same story 8 or 9 times in a week.
I have a coworker on Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays, but I just have to feed him and change his poopy diaper, and that's it. Most of the time, he just keeps to himself.
I was going to say, but that coworker is probably one of the best coworkers to ever have because you get to mold them into your little minion.
Yeah, and they'll nap and go and shut up for an hour a day.
Yeah, so that was my little PSA.
Yeah,
it's been a rough summer so far.
I feel the pain, Steve. I feel the pain.
I understand that as well. Working as a cash register.
Oh no!
I do not feel the pain.
Hey, wait! Do you ever get Travis? Do you ever get the thing where they don't have a price on it and they go,
"Oh God,
does that mean it's free?"
I worked at Stop and Shop for 6 years.
No, you know how many times? You know how many times I've heard the fucking free Friday joke? Oh, it's Friday. It's free Friday. I get everything for free.
What?
Fuck you!
What?
I hate you.
This is why people shoot people. This is
free Friday.
Yeah, I've heard that so many times working as a cashier.
Oh, I
free
would have thought
Friday.
that
Get
I would
everything
have thought
for
that
free.
it has no price tag because it's free, so it must be free.
No,
I hear that and I want to cry.
I've had at least 3 people that the price that rung up wasn't the same as what was there. So they're like, "Oh, I get it for free because that is the law or
False
something."
marketing.
Supermarket law.
Technically, it
No,
is.
no, it is true, but like screw you if you're going to go through all that trouble just to
Get a free ice cream.
get a free ice cream. It was like, I'm sorry, it was $3 and you get it for free.
Yeah, also like the fact that they're putting you through that amount of stress when like you have no control over the
Yeah,
prices
all
of
right.
things.
I'm going to also do a PSA. If you're dealing with a cashier, treat them good.
Yes.
Just treat your cashiers well. Do not treat them like a piece of shit that most people do.
Man, I haven't been to a grocery store in probably 6 months, 7 months, because I just started doing Instacart because I'm lazy and I don't want to see people. But like that was always my like I never understood why someone could be mean to someone who's literally taking the food that you need to eat and putting it in bags for you. And they're not the one that put the price on it that was wrong. And they're not the one that put it like they have no control over it. And you're yelling at them, or like you're yelling at them because something expired or something broke when you were holding it.
On that point, don't fucking yell at me about your coupons.
Oh my God, no.
I don't give a shit if your coupons work or not.
Coupons
I'm sorry.
should be outlawed. I think coupons
I'm
should be
sorry,
outlawed.
but stop.
On that note, back to the tent. On that note, we're gonna end. As usual,
I didn't even do my recommendation. Wait a minute.
Yeah, you did recommend.
His recommendation was fuck coupons.
Yeah. As usual, if you're listening to us on audio format, make sure give us a comment and everything. If you're not and you want to listen to past audio episodes, we're on Spotify and all those other pretty much any other podcast platform that you can think of. We have our own website, 3episodepodcast.com. Come check that out. Steve, if they're watching our YouTube and they have not subscribed or any of that kind of stuff, what do they do so that they can continue watching us, so they can get notified?
I mean, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification. It lets you know whenever we post things. It also helps out our content. Let us know what you like. Tell us good things. Tell us about your sex life.
Yeah, I want to hear.
Timing.
I want to hear how you
Perfect
guys.
timing for this.
What
Tell
do
us
you guys
about your
do?
sex life.
Yeah.
Do you like it with the lights on? Do you like it with the lights off? Do you want that hip little what are they called? The extra hair?
The goat hair cock ring.
Do you like it? Do you like it on a train? Do you like it in the rain? Do you
do it on a flight of stairs so your kid comes out with a crooked back?
Like,
I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not. Okay, everyone say goodnight, please.
Good night.
Good night.